A more than 2-month-long I-9 investigation found only 2 reports of sexual harassment in 7 years in the 4 largest cities in the TV9 viewing area. Some experts warn that information is misleading and a sign that cultures may need to change.
TV9's chief investigative reporter Josh Scheinblum looked into what local governments are doing to try to prevent sexual harassment.
An Associated Press project found just 1 report of sexual harassment in the state legislature in 10 years, a case that recently ended with a $1.75 million settlement. But we know that's wrong. 2 state reports since then have noted disturbing issues present in the work culture of the Iowa legislature and specific instances of sexual harassment that went unreported. Our own investigation found similar data in eastern Iowa cities, along with little to no reports of sexual harassment, a number some experts say is likely wrong too. The cities of Cedar Rapids, Dubuque, Iowa City, and Waterloo are not only some of the largest metros in eastern Iowa, they're also among the largest employers with nearly 4,000 staffers combined. But in the past 7 years, our I-9 open records requests found those cities recorded only 2 complaints of sexual harassment, 1 in Dubuque and 1 in Cedar Rapids. That sounds good, but some experts believe it's too good to be true.
I'd put money on a bet that said that's not accurate in real life.
Tiffany O'Donnell is the CEO of the nonprofit Iowa Women Lead Change, a group that works to empower women in the workplace. We told O'Donnell what our records requests had revealed.
Sadly, not terribly surprised. I say this because the climate has been, I feel, up until now, one where there wasn't a lot of trust between employees and reporting complaints like that. You wouldn't really go to HR unless you were ready to walk out the door.
O'Donnell has reason to be skeptical. A 2016 federal study published by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission found anywhere from 25% to 85% of women have been sexually harassed in the workplace.
It's really important for each individual organization to look at it and address whether they have an issue.
Mark Hudson is a sexual harassment attorney who trains employers in best practices to combat sexual harassment.
You want to create an environment where people can report it and then you'll take it seriously. The consequences are you lose employees, and from a legal standpoint, the consequences are you could be sued.
Hudson said employers should have clear policies surrounding sexual harassment, something every city we spoke to has. But he also recommended agencies conduct regular sexual harassment training sessions and consider putting out employee satisfaction surveys. Records obtained by I-9 reveal only Iowa City and Cedar Rapids have conducted some form of sexual harassment training in recent years. And Cedar Rapids is the only city that's put out an employee satisfaction survey. That survey, compiled this past summer, did not specifically address sexual harassment, but in it, nearly 1 in 4 disagreed that the city cares about me as a person.
When you hear that the number is 0 going back 8 years in a city with more than 500 plus employees, right, do you believe it?
Absolutely.
They are the facts.
Dubuque City Manager Michael Van Milligan and Waterloo Mayor Quentin Hart both were not surprised we found a lack of sexual harassment reports. Nevertheless, both pointed to ongoing efforts to improve workplace cultures.
We've had an intercultural competency program now for about 10 years. However, with the latest revelations around the country and the activities that are happening, we certainly are looking at beefing up that program.
We just hired a full-time HR director probably about 10 months ago, and what our HR director has been able to do was go out and begin the process of doing harassment training.
That training, offered in both cities, Mayor Hart and Van Milligan tell I-9, isn't focused on sexual harassment, but it is included. And in the case of Waterloo, Hart says their training has already been given to 2 departments within the city. It's his goal to have all agencies trained soon. In Dubuque, Van Milligan says everyone has already been trained.
The biggest room that we have is the room for improvement, and just because employees have 0 cases does not mean that we stop the message about the type of environment or workplace that we want to have and see.
Other cities we spoke to did offer written statements. Jim Throgmorton, Iowa City's mayor, said in part, "I anticipate that the council would, in collaboration with the city manager and staff, review your findings and consider whether changes in city policy are required." And in Cedar Rapids, interim human resources director Sandy Fowler reaffirmed a commitment that any incidents are thoroughly investigated and appropriate disciplinary action is taken against any employee who violates the city's harassment policy. As for that state report we referenced earlier, it has similar recommendations as we found, calling for regular sexual harassment training and establishing a formal complaint process. In studio, Josh Scheinblum, KCRG TV 9 News.